Scott just made the point yesterday.
It used to be a lot more secure, not just.
What would happen in 2016 if black Americans turned out en masse to vote for Republicans? An ESPN host proposed the idea, and you're going to meet him today. I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by Bill Whittle and stand-up comic Stephen Cruiser, who's sitting in for the peripatetic Stephen Green. Now, men, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith said something out loud that many PJTV viewers probably believe. But oddly enough, he chose to say it on CNN to Michael Smerconish, a talk show host who surprised his Philadelphia listeners by backing Obama in 2008. He may have burned some conservative radio fans, but yeah, now he's on CNN.
Vast majority of black Americans look at the Republican Party as the enemy. We look at the Democratic Party, even tacitly, as our support base. And as a result, we are very transparent in our support for them. So because of it, they have a license to take us for granted. The Republican Party has a license to summarily dismiss us because they believe they'll never get our vote anyway. And then we end up finding ourselves devoid of any kind of representation whatsoever because nobody is really competing to garner our vote and our support.
Now, I have no idea what Stephen Smith's political proclivities are, but that's not the issue here. Smith is looking at this purely on a transactional level. Vote Republican, so they'll pay attention to you. Now, Stephen Cruiser, as more of an ideological guy, does that rub you the wrong way? I mean, shouldn't everybody vote for candidates who believe as they do and act consistently with those principles?
In a perfect world, yes. And that also presupposes that we will be holding said politicians accountable after they're elected, which is another dicey problem that we face here in this country. We really don't do that, even those of us who vote for people based on principle only. But this may be one of the most brilliant and succinct political analyses I've heard in quite a long time. And one of the reasons I've never quit Stephen A. Smith is because he really irritates me sometimes as a sports fan, but he has no filter whatsoever, and he does think about what he says a little bit before he lets it through that no filter. And he says things like this every once in a while that are fantastic, and he's right. He's saying the thing that the three of us can't say because then it would be racist, because then we don't know what we're talking about. But he's right. There's the Democrats take the black vote for granted, and the Republicans discount it for the most part here. I mean, we're all twisting ourselves into knots to make the Latino vote happy right now, but when was the last time you heard the Republicans, other than maybe Rand Paul in this cycle so far, seriously talking about the black vote? Because they know that they're not going to get it. So this is a brilliant point, and transactional politics may be what this country needs, but not only if you're going to do it before the election, but afterwards, and if you want to really hold people accountable.
Now, Bill Whittle, did Stephen A. Smith just, break the code? The code? And what will the Democrats do to others should they follow his example?
Well, he's not going to get the same kind of backlash that the absolutely talented and very, very smart Stacey Dash got, for example, because he's basically saying the reason you should vote Republican is so you can get your Democratic masters back in line and get them to pay attention to you and stop taking you for granted. This is kind of like walking out on an abusive boyfriend to get his attention, so that he'll treat you better when you come back. At least that's certainly the take I get on it. He's absolutely right, though. I mean, he's absolutely brilliant. I agree with Stephen completely. It's a brilliant analysis. The Democrats take blacks for granted, and so do the Republicans. The Republicans take blacks for granted because they're afraid of blacks, and Democrats are afraid of blacks, too. They're just afraid of them in a different way. I worked on a show called Sunday Morning Shootout with Peter Bart and Peter Goober, both super gigantic uber liberals. And when a black guest was on the show, the overwhelming caution and care and the incredible kid gloves. And do you mind if we ask you this? And speaking as an African American and all this other stuff, same kind of thing. It's still a reluctance and a fear to treat them as absolute people. And the way that you get to the black vote in America as a Republican is to believe in what you believe in. I know it's a novel thought, but let's just give it a whirl. If you want to get the black vote in America, you go to black audiences and you say the reason the Republican Party does not make an effort to get the black vote because we don't believe there's such a thing as a black vote. We believe that there's your vote. We believe that you are an individual person with individual needs that may or may not have been best suited by voting Democrat in the past, but we're here to tell you that based on your individual requirements and your individual search for meaning, we think our plan is better for everybody. We don't think of you as black Americans. We think of you as Americans. We're not the people who are talking about this kind of ongoing, perpetual, endless racism. We want to treat you like individuals. Some of you are super, terrific, hardworking, decent, honest people. Some of you in this room are miserable, low-life, scoundrel, bastard criminals. It's the same for anybody. It's the same for any community in the world. I can walk into any room in America and have the exact same experience. So we're talking to you as individuals. What do you individually want to accomplish in your life? If you think about it as an individual and stop thinking about it as a protected group that's being handed stuff in exchange for your vote, you're going to find that our policies are better for you in every way, and primary among them is this belief that we are going to treat you as the man and woman that you are, which means no special prejudice against you and no special love for you either. You're going to be judged by the content of your character. Go make that speech and watch what happens.
Where have I heard that phrase before? Content of your character. Anyway, when I first ran for office back in 2009, I told a Republican state senator that I was going to campaign door to door in the city. He told me not to waste my time, since Democrats held a 3 or 4 to 1 registration advantage in Allentown, and I had no hope of winning there. Now, the kicker is that his district included parts of the city. He told me to work the suburbs, the Republican heartland where voter turnout was much higher, and we could beat the Democrats without wasting time or money courting urban voters futilely. So I asked him, when are we going to start telling our story face to face, one-on-one with minority voters? And he said, you can do that after the election. But he knows, and I know, that after the election, the money's gone, and so is the motivation. Stephen A. Smith is right. Democrats have taken blacks for granted, and so have Republicans. It's time to turn the tide, but not by expecting blacks to smack down Democrats by voting Republican, but by calling on Republicans to use their feet and their money to meet black voters, to make friends, to learn their concerns, and to share the story of liberty, which is universal. For Stephen Cruiser, Bill Whittle, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.